The United Kingdom today stands at a complex crossroads in its long energy history. Despite sitting atop some of the richest natural resources in the North Sea, Britain now faces some of the highest energy costs in the developed world. Household energy bills have soared to unprecedented levels, and the nation finds itself deeply dependent on external energy supplies. This reality becomes even more striking when we look across the same waters at Norway. Both nations discovered their oil wealth in the same sea around the same time, yet they embarked on completely different journeys. After discovering oil, Norway established a sovereign wealth fund and began steadily accumulating its profits in a national piggy bank. This fund has now grown to a staggering $1.6 trillion, making Norway one of the wealthiest nations on Earth. In contrast, the United Kingdom treated its oil revenue as immediate income to fund current government spending. Since the 1980s, these vast profits were used to fill immediate fiscal gaps, such as tax cuts, social welfare, and unemployment benefits. Furthermore, Britain did not treat energy as a national strategic resource, opting instead for a private sector model of operation. By prioritizing market efficiency over state control, the UK missed the opportunity to turn its oil wealth into a long-term capital reserve, losing its greatest chance for economic independence. As a result of these different choices, while Norway enjoys immense wealth, the UK is left to struggle with a crippling energy crisis. So the question is clear: why did the United Kingdom make such a decision? How did that choice create the harsh reality we see today? And what is the British government doing now to escape this crisis? To answer all these questions, we will look back at the entire journey, from the desperate days before the black gold was found to the energy crisis the UK faces today. Until the 1950s, the UK was a nation powered almost entirely by coal, but as its industries modernized, the demand for oil began to skyrocket. At that time, Britain was completely dependent on oil imported from the Middle East, which made the nation's economy highly vulnerable. The Suez Crisis and various geopolitical tensions in the region created a sense of urgency for energy independence. So, while many experts looked toward the potential for oil in the North Sea, the waters there were known as the Sea of Hell due to their extreme depth and violent storms. The technology of that era was not yet advanced enough to drill in such a hostile environment, and most believed that finding oil there was impossible. However, a major turning point occurred in 1959, when a massive gas field was discovered in Groningen, the Netherlands. This discovery gave scientists and geologists hope that similar vast resources might be hidden beneath the North Sea. The race to explore the deep waters began, and the technological limits of the time were pushed to their breaking point. The first major breakthrough came in 1969, when the American company Mobil discovered the giant Ekofisk oil field in the Norwegian sector. This monumental discovery proved that the North Sea was indeed a treasure trove of black gold. Just a year later, in 1970, the United Kingdom finally struck its own fortune with the discovery of the Forties field. The massive Brent field was found shortly after in 1971, confirming that Britain had officially entered the era of the great oil powers. With this newfound wealth, a golden future seemed guaranteed for the British people. Yet, this moment of triumph also brought a difficult question that would change the fate of the nation forever. How would the government manage this immense wealth? And who would ultimately control the keys to Britain's energy? By the late 1970s, the newly elected government under Margaret Thatcher decided on a bold and controversial direction. The Thatcher administration championed the philosophy of a small government and turned toward privatization and deregulation. At the time, the British National Oil Corporation, or BNOC, was the state-owned entity managing these resources. However, the government chose to privatize BNOC, which eventually became part of what we know today as BP. Instead of keeping the oil as a national strategic resource, the UK decided to sell off drilling rights to private companies. The primary goal of the government was to maximize short-term revenue through taxation and royalties. This strategy encouraged private firms to pump oil as quickly as possible, which provided an immediate boost to the national treasury. This influx of cash was used to fund current spending, such as tax cuts and social welfare programs, rather than being saved for the future. Furthermore, even the critical infrastructure, including pipelines and storage facilities, was allowed to pass into private ownership. By handing over these assets, the state effectively gave up its ability to coordinate a long-term national energy strategy. The UK became a rare example of an energy-producing nation that did not maintain direct control over its own resources. This shift toward market efficiency created a system where the benefits of the North Sea were traded for immediate fiscal relief. And as the oil began to flow out of the sea and into the global market, even greater problems from this privatization started to emerge. As the years passed, the North Sea fields began to age, causing production levels to fall while the costs of extraction steadily climbed. The most painful paradox for the British people today is that even though the oil and gas come from their own waters, the government has no power to set the price. Because the infrastructure and the resources were handed over to private corporations, the UK must bid for its own energy at full international market prices. This structural dependence has left the nation completely vulnerable to global price shocks, forcing citizens to face some of the highest energy bills in the world. To address these deep-seated issues, the government is now desperately attempting to shift its strategy and regain some form of stability. One of the primary tools being used is the Energy Profits Levy, often called the windfall tax, which aims to capture the excess profits of energy giants. Furthermore, there is a significant effort to restructure the tax system to incentivize long-term investment in renewable energy rather than just immediate extraction. The UK is pouring vast resources into offshore wind and other clean energy projects, hoping to transform the North Sea into a global green energy hub. The state is also taking controversial steps by granting new drilling licenses for fields like Rosebank, arguing that domestic production is still essential for national security. These efforts represent a difficult struggle to balance the immediate need for self-sufficiency with the long-term commitment to a green transition. Yet, as the nation tries to fix these historical mistakes, these new attempts are hitting a massive wall of practical limitations and new conflicts. The primary obstacle is the sudden change in the investment climate caused by the windfall tax. While the government intended to redistribute excess profits, global energy companies have responded by threatening to withdraw their investments from the North Sea. This has created a deep sense of policy instability, making long-term planning almost impossible for both the state and private sectors. Furthermore, the transition to renewable energy is not as simple as building wind turbines. The existing power grid is outdated and requires massive capital to be restructured for green energy, and the intermittency of wind remains a technical challenge. There is also a significant social cost as the traditional oil and gas industry shrinks, leading to the disappearance of thousands of skilled jobs. Politically, the UK is caught in a fierce debate over the Rosebank field, where environmental goals clash directly with the immediate need for energy security. On top of all this, the government must also face the astronomical cost of decommissioning aging oil platforms, which is estimated to exceed £50 billion. These financial and structural burdens mean that every step toward a new energy future is met with heavy resistance. The path forward is no longer just a matter of policy, but a survival strategy in a world of limited choices. So the ultimate question remains clear. What will the future of British energy truly look like in the face of these immense challenges? The first possibility is the best-case scenario, where the North Sea successfully transforms into the wind capital of the world. In this future, the UK leads the global green transition, achieving energy independence through massive offshore wind and hydrogen technology. As the nation becomes a clean energy exporter, the high costs of the past finally vanish, and a new era of prosperity begins. On the other hand, there is the worst-case scenario, where the transition is delayed and the economy stumbles. If the power grid fails to modernize and energy companies continue to withdraw their investments, the UK could fall into a cycle of chronic energy poverty. In this dark future, the nation remains trapped by high global prices, without the protection of its own resources. The most realistic scenario, however, is a long and difficult period of coexistence between old and new energy. The government will likely struggle to manage the decline of oil while slowly building up green infrastructure, leading to a slow and often painful recovery. Ultimately, we have witnessed through the different journeys of the United Kingdom and Norway that while a windfall of natural resources can provide immediate comfort, the future is determined by how that wealth is managed and chosen. The true legacy of a nation is not defined by how much gold it finds under its feet, but by the wisdom used to manage and protect that wealth, which ultimately decides the future of its children. Britain's story is a quiet warning that once a great opportunity is lost, the road to reclaiming it is long and paved only with difficult lessons.